Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Tonic Accord podcast. I am Drew, joined by my co-host Alex. How you doing, man?
Doing okay. I was thinking about shaving before this. I've been letting the beard go for a while, but I was like, you know what? Screw it. Like
It
with
looks
everything
good.
going on right now, I feel like I kind of have an edge vibe. Kind of adding the edge to 2020.
It looks good. It's
So
about
yeah,
to be
how about you?
fall.
How is
It's about to be fall, so it's gonna get cold. It looks good. I'm doing all
Thanks,
right.
brother.
I'm going for
Appreciate it.
the opposite. I don't have any. I have like maybe 5 o'clock shadow, but I definitely feel like I have 5 o'clock shadow after last night's debate, and that is where we're going to be doing a more in-depth analysis. So last night we did do a live stream on Twitch, and you can see that whole recording on YouTube as well if you want to see our live reactions and kind of maybe get your own recap of the debate itself if you haven't seen it. But this is just going to be a shorter episode, more kind of now that we've digested what happened with the debate over the last 24 hours. We're going to take a more in-depth analysis, maybe look at some reactions from undecided voters and various polls, and kind of give, what's the next step for both these candidates. So, we've heard, I'm sure if you're at all following politics, you've heard a lot about this debate and you've heard it was a mess. Do you think you agree with that, Alex?
Yeah, it was an effing disaster. And for anyone who watched our live stream last night or has not been under a rock for the last 24 hours, I think that's kind of the general consensus. Like, I've talked to conservatives, Democrats, independents, neo-Nazis. No, I haven't, but you know what I mean. Like, I've talked to literally everyone under the sun about this. I don't think anyone, maybe except for neo-Nazis, thought that this was a good debate. Because let's just be honest. Like, I think David Pakman, actually, when he was on Joe Rogan, summed this up the best. And he talks about how we're always appalled by Trump debates, or we're kind of appalled by Trump's rhetoric. His point is that we think this is crazy because we're kind of judging these debates in a realm of normalcy, like of a past realm of what it's like to be presidential or political. And we almost need to kind of remove those lenses and look at where we're at right now, because this is not normal, and we cannot act like it is anymore. And, you know, I think it's become very clear to me that I am surprised that this debate even happened, because it was not good for Trump. It was not good for Biden. It was horrible for the American people. And just to start it off, like, I think this debate made me and a lot of Americans lose faith in kind of every aspect of a presidential election. And you guys know Frank Luntz, who's a conservative pollster, and he basically did exit polls. Like, that's kind of what he always does, is exit polls. But he felt and his polls showed this, is that, let me look at the quote here. A lot of people felt like Trump was the aggressor, but actually the exit polls said that most people that he polled said that they actually had a more negative view leaving, and that they actually felt more inclined to not vote. And that was also the vibe I got. Like, I'm still going to vote, but if you're someone who's on the edge of voting or not, I almost feel like this debate made you just say, screw it. Like, I'm not going to vote anymore. And that helps Trump. That goes into his favor, because he wants low voter turnout.
Interesting. Well, certainly it was. I agree with you, and I agree with the common. Sorry about my phone. I agree with the consensus that it was a mess. I mean, there was shouting over each other. There was interruptions nonstop. Very little in-depth policy discussions, right? I mean, I don't even think many numbers were even thrown around, right? Contrast that to a debate where the Democratic primary debate with like Bernie Sanders, and then Bernie Sanders almost to a fault puts out statistics and facts and money and his accounting and whatever. And this had like none of that. This was a lot of character assassination, a lot of just shouting, and it was definitely a mess. I think I saw a CBS poll. We will take a little bit out the video. A CBS poll had 69% of the people they polled felt annoyed after the debate. Annoyed. Only 17% felt that they were informed, right? So it was not informational. I don't even really, like, there was not even much information at all. Like, just, I can't, and people felt annoyed, and I agree with them. Now, am I surprised by it? Not really. I mean, I'm really not. Like, I was not coming into this debate expecting it to be some, Titanic battle of the minds, or right, or a really in-depth,
Right.
a really in-depth look at economic policy. No way. This was going to be a shouting match, and this is what I expected. But yeah, just to say that though, it's sad that that's what I've come to expect.
Oh yeah, totally. And no, I am just surprised about so many parts of it, but also I guess I'm really not. But Trump was a wrecking ball. Chris Wallace had no control, and Biden just seemed to be kind of along for the ride. And yeah, he looked good, and I think he had a few good zingers, but I still don't think it was enough to do anything. And, I've been hearing a lot of criticism on Chris Wallace's handling of this. And what I tell them is that I don't think anyone could have handled this well. He went into it preparing for, yes, a partisan and extremely like chaotic debate. But I don't think anyone was able to deal with the fact that Trump just had a temper tantrum the whole time. And like I don't know if there's any other way to really say it, is that I don't think Biden did particularly well in the debate. I think Trump just lowered the bar yet again, and unfortunately Biden fell to it. And I think it was last night. I mean, we were talking about that Mark Twain quote, is like, you don't really want to lower yourself to go play with the pigs, because the pigs are always going to win when you're playing in the mud. And that's kind of the vibe I got from this, is just the kind of bar was lowered. And I listened to Ben Shapiro and a few others today just to kind of get the other side analysis and kind of hear both sides' take on this. And a lot of the right are condemning Biden for calling Trump a clown and going after his character and making fun of him. And I'm like, that's the problem here, is that no one criticizes Trump for doing it, because he always does it. Trump gets a pass because he's an a-hole.
Yeah.
Like, let's be honest, that's just what he does. But unfortunately, Biden, I would almost say, needed to maintain supremacy and morality, and he didn't. And I'm not really criticizing him, because I don't know who would, especially when Trump at a time attacked Beau Biden's drug problems. Like, side note, but I also feel like Biden showed moral supremacy by not bringing up the fact that Trump's own brother died of alcoholism. Like, it could have got ugly on both sides, and Biden did hold supremacy there, I think, in the morality. But still, at the end of the day, like, I think it just became two pigs throwing mud at each other, and Trump is always going to win. And that's why people, like, I've seen almost unanimously on the internet, people think that Trump lost. And I would argue that Biden didn't do enough to actually go above and beyond. And so still we're remembering what Trump said. And so Trump didn't win. We're going to remember what he said. And for groups like the Proud Boys and supremacists, I think that means that Trump did win in the mind of some people. And that's scary to me.
Well, Trump certainly won in the mind of hardcore Trump fans. Like, of course, like he can literally do no wrong at this point. But I think I disagree with your point about Biden needing to take the moral high ground. That's kind of been the Democratic MO for years, and it lost. That's what Hillary Clinton was trying to do. Is, I'm not going to be deplorable. I'm going to be professional and stateswoman. I'm going to be stately and mature. And it sucked. It was boring, and especially from Hillary Clinton. I mean, it just didn't feel believable. But I don't think Biden should take this like moral high ground. I mean, obviously he will in a certain sense, because he wants to, he's going to talk about, I'm going to be a president for the Democrats and Republicans. He should have that uniting message for sure. But he should clap back at Trump. I actually think he missed opportunities to attack Trump, like when Trump was mentioning, Hunter Biden's, gift from Moscow. Biden could have gone to town with, what about your sons and daughters making millions of dollars and so working for the White House, and Jared Kushner, who's barely passing security clearances because you're the one forcing security clearances through, messing up foreign policy. Like, he could have gone so much deeper into Trump's family. I mean, if you're talking about nepotism and playing favorites with your family, Trump is doing all of that. His entire family works in the White House. Why? We didn't elect his family. So I think there was plenty of opportunities that Biden should have. I think he needed to be more aggressive. Now, not in like shout and interrupt Trump way, not in the same way that he was, but just like take more stabs, attack him where it hurts. Mess with Trump's ego, because that's because if you get Trump really upset, he looks like a baby. That's what happened. He looked like a child. Even when Chris Wallace brought up. Even when Chris Wallace brought up the interruptions, right? Like, gentlemen, we need, interruptions, and he's like, Mr. President, you are doing it the most. And then Trump immediately said he did it too. Like, literally like a toddler, like, well, he did it first, or he started it.
Yeah.
Like, so I don't know. If I was Biden, I would try and piss Trump off and play into that and make him look more and more like a petulant child. But instead, I think he was Biden, right? He was stumbling over his words. speaks a lot slower. You can tell some of the things he says were rehearsed. Um, I don't think he had he needs to get more fiery. I think because here's why I think this. Trump is really good at channeling the anger of his supporters. He's really good at representing the feelings that people feel that support Trump. They feel very angry with, Antifa. They feel very angry with, immigration. And Trump is a good vessel for their anger. Biden is not a good vessel for the way I think people feel about the country right now, because people on the left are extremely upset as well. They're upset at the way COVID was handled. We're upset at the way that Trump has handled immigration and putting children in cages. Where it's people are pissed off, and like the amount of radicalization and how people have thought. I used to think I was center, now I'm hard left now because I'm so angry at the world. Biden doesn't channel that anger very well, and I think that's a missed point. I think he's not good at that. He doesn't feel like he represents a body of people very well.
Well, I actually don't think we're that far. Like, I think we could disagree about some of the specifics of how Biden's reacted. But like to address at least the first part is that I agree with you that I think Biden should fight back. It was less what I mean when I say that he needs to hold the moral high ground. More what I mean is that, like you said, and I agree with it, he missed opportunities to articulate a good defense, and instead he was calling Trump a clown or
Right,
"shut
okay.
up, man." It's like that's what Trump does. There's no benefits coming out of that.
That's valid.
And so that's what I mean is, and I think we agree. It's just schematics, like everything, and like I think that Biden
Semantics. Yeah.
semantics. Sorry, sorry, semantics is like I think that's the problem here is that
Right.
Biden didn't time or deliver proper responses. He lowered himself to the pettiness of Trump's actions, and that's
That's
where
true.
I
Yeah.
really don't see there being much of a positive out of that.
Now let's.
But
I think
yeah, go
I
ahead.
think there's a pretty obvious discrepancy in who did more of the immature, childish things. Like I think, like they both are at fault, right? Like con clown and shut up, man. But Trump was by far the one instigating that kind of attitude from the get go. So let's be very clear of who was the one setting the tone as far as that chaotic event. It was Donald Trump. And I don't care who you are on your political scale. That's what happened. I mean, let's be real. Now,
Yeah, and
well, okay. Well, I wanted to go.
yeah, though.
Oh, sorry. We keep going over each other. I want to talk about some of these zingers, right? Um, you had mentioned, the Hunter Biden thing. I think one really good zinger that Trump had that really caught Joe Biden off guard was about the Supreme Courts when he was asked, "Are you going to change, the rules around the Supreme Court if you're elected?" And Biden deflected it and said, "Just go out and vote and you decide or whatever." And Trump just kept hammering him, "Are you going to pack the courts?" And he didn't answer. "Are you going to pack the courts?" And Biden didn't answer, and even said, "Look, he won't even answer it." That was really strong. That was a really good zinger.
Yeah, I agree with you there as well because I actually think this is a big problem for Biden because about I think it was 3 days ago he was asked a very similar question on CNN and MSNBC, and he beat around the bush every time. He's been asked on numerous occasions, even in the last week alone, if he's going to pack the court. And politically, if he says he's not, then Democrats are going to be mad. And politically, if he says he is, then Republicans are just going to condemn him. And so I think, unfortunately, because of the rhetoric of the kind of AOC progressive movement that is growing, Biden is kind of held to balancing across this across this whole issue. And I do think that it could be his Achilles heel, actually. And I'm surprised that A, Biden didn't have a better response, and B, Chris Wallace didn't maybe challenge Biden more on this. But I do agree with you that I think it's an interesting one to kind of follow up. And, the other thing I'll say, just while I'm remembering it, is back to that Frank Luntz poll. He was talking to a lot of people, and apparently the economy with his exit polls was a key issue. And his big takeaway was that voters already knew the negatives of Trump. And Biden kept focusing on Trump's response to the coronavirus or Trump's or attempted appeals at every aspect of Obamacare, or repeals, not appeals. And a lot of voters basically said they wanted to hear Biden's alternatives, but instead it was Biden kind of stuck in this whirlwind of responding to Trump and defending his own like
Right.
kind of honor. And there was actually no substantive debate. And obviously, on Trump's side, there was none of that either. But I think a lot of voters already know where they stand on what Trump's done. And they were really hoping for Biden to do more.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It did feel like Biden was up against the ropes at some times, and he wasn't even able to get out his policy. And now, I mean, especially more like the Green New Deal thing when Trump basically tried to associate AOC's Green New Deal with Biden's environmental plan, which are two different things. That was the whole thing. Was Biden couldn't even go into what his plan was. All he had time to say was, "Wait, no, that's not my plan. The Green New Deal's not my plan. It's the Biden plan." And then we never even heard what the Biden plan is. So yeah,
What is that?
there was a significant lack of substantive content. Right, it was not informative. I don't know any more about Biden's plank than I did before tonight, and nor do I learn any more about Trump's. It was more about who do I like more, Trump or Biden, and it was that character battle. Let's think of some other one-liners. I think that Trump's taxes came up in the debate briefly. Chris Wallace even brought it up. That doesn't look good. And Trump said something along the lines of, when you have the law, you do what you have to do. And that was a really weird way to basically admit that I used loopholes to get rid of my taxes, right? So I think Biden needs to hammer that home, right? He needs to say things like, you out there who's had working 2 part-time jobs have paid more taxes than him. Like, really hammer that home. And then, of course, the veterans things with Beau Biden, of course Joe Biden's going to bring that up with the veterans calling them suckers and losers. It would be a miss not to. And then, Donald Trump saying, "Oh, I don't know Beau Biden." That was a bad look, right? You don't know Beau Biden? Come on, like, of course you do. We know who he is. You've done opposition research on your opponent. You know who Beau Biden is. So that was a bad look. There was a couple of moments where Donald Trump didn't really look like he was obviously lying, right? But so I think as far as the segments, I think Trump won the Supreme Court segment. Biden won the coronavirus segment, right? Because Trump's only rebuttal was, "What about H1N1, where 14,000 people died?" Like, bro, that's that's okay. What about this one where 200,000 people died? So that was not really a really thought out response. Like, it felt like off the cuff. Like, well, you did it too, but it's like, dude, that's not a good response when people are still dying. So I think Trump lost on his taxes because of that. He had a flustered response, but then Biden lost with the law enforcement issue, right? It started out talking about, race issues and social justice, and Trump immediately pivoted it into law enforcement and the cops, which is smart because I don't think his responses on racial justice are very good. So he pivots it to law enforcement, which people have to get behind the police now. And Biden, I think, lost that argument. Even though Biden has been multiple times has said he doesn't support violent protest, that one line where Donald Trump kept saying, you have no law enforcement that's endorsed you, was probably pretty powerful to a lot of people.
I think that was really interesting. And I do think that, obviously we're seeing 2 just completely different narratives in the United States. So it's really hard to come together on even zingers, right? Or even understand maybe the context of some of these zingers. But I do think that would have been a good time for Biden to maybe clarify his stance on protests, the riots, and law enforcement. Because I think a big problem the Democrats face right now, and I think it's partially not even existent in reality, is that they need to clarify that they're not anti-police, that they're anti-systematic problems that could be fixed by better policing and probably more money. And the problem is that Biden is trying to balance kind of an extreme progressive left that is almost willing to defund and get rid of the police to fix this, and a moderate centrist group that doesn't. And I think he's really tried to balance this, and sometimes he's been good because he brought up community policing at one point, which is something that I agree with. It's putting more resources into not only the police in a community, but also other programs. And I think he needs to make that point more clear, because a lot of moderates do see the narrative of Democrats being anti-law and order. And I think, again, Biden could have said more or responded better, and he didn't. And now on the on the tax thing, I just wanted to say real quick, like, I agree with your analysis there, is that Trump either way admitted it, because he said it was fake news that the New York Times reported, that he paid $750 in taxes over the last like period of time. And he said it was fake news, but then in the same sentence he admitted that he was just using the system. So
Right.
what's true? Is it fake news that you paid that little, or is it true and you're admitting that you just used the system? I don't I don't particularly know. And one zinger though that I actually thought was hilarious, and just for comic sake right here I'll say it, is that, so I think Biden was talking and then Trump interrupted and Chris Wallace is like, "Please Donald, let him finish." And Biden's like, "That's something Trump's not good at." And then he kind of looks over in the Melania direction. I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah,
Which is pretty clever.
that is funny. That is funny. Um, yeah, I mean, yeah, I think there was. Now, I do think though. I think the main headline here is that it was such a mess. I actually think that the fact that it was such a mess will kind of overshadow any big movement because, um, looking at a CBS poll. Actually, how about we do this? Let's look at some of the reactions, and I will go into what I think this means for the bigger picture. But let me see if I can just skip ahead here a little bit. Okay, so the tone.
Well, and then before we're out of here, I do also want to just touch on the elections and their responses, but we'll get to that before we're out of here, I'm sure.
Yeah. So the tone of the debate here, you can see here on the screen. The tone of the debate is, I'm not live streaming. So are you able to see my screen or no?
No, I cannot actually. You're right. That's
okay. You know what? That's all right. I'll just let you know what I see. So CBS exit polls and with the help of YouGov, by the way, 83% said the tone was negative. No surprise there. Only 17% said it was a positive tone. Who won tonight's debate? 48% said Joe Biden, 41% said Donald Trump, and 10% said a tie. So no real clear winner, right? That's not a huge enough margin to really be like, Joe smashed it out of the water, or the other way around. Really kind of mixed reviews over as far as who quote unquote won. Let's see here. 69. This is what I said. 69% said annoyed. 31% said entertained. 19% said pessimistic, and only 17% said informed. So not exactly flying colors as far as a healthy debate.
How did almost 20% find it informing?
Yeah.
Informational. I don't even understand that.
I don't know what information you got out of that, but whatever it was probably not good information. And if you look here, so just a quick now we're here looking at what people felt pre-debate and what people felt after debate about Donald Trump. He barely moved as far as cares about people like you, 46%, 46%. Is honest and trustworthy, only went up 1%. Has stamina for the job, only went up 2%. And then, so not much movement really in the grand scheme of statistics. That's not much movement at all. That's within the margin of error. So you consider that not moving. Joe Biden, same thing. Only 3% increase on cares about people like you pre and post debate. Only 1% increase on honest and trustworthy, and only 3% increase on stamina for the job. All of again, which within margin of error, which is 3 to 4 points. Basically, again, non-movement. So people's opinion of either candidate really didn't change after this debate at all, not in any significant way. And let's see what else we can glean out of this. I think that's about it. So if we take this and other polls as where it's like, I think I saw another poll earlier. I didn't get the link, unfortunately, but it said 90% of one poll said there was no winner. So if you have the option of having, I don't believe there was a winner, this one poll, overwhelming majority said there was no winner. And in a weird way, I think that the fact that there was no winner is a winning for Biden, because he's ahead in the polls. Trump needed to close a gap. Now, he still has time to do that. He still has 2 more debates, so I'm not saying there's writing on the wall yet. Certainly not. But he needed a big first win. He needed to get some momentum and close that gap. And if there's no change, then I think that Biden takes the W. On that alone, not looking at performance, just on the poll reactions alone.
Right. And, I think that's a really good point, because even Ben Shapiro this morning was talking about something relatively similar, where he's like, Trump's kind of belligerent attacks would have at least made more sense. And I'm talking about at least. Like, I still don't think it's a good move, but they at least would have made more sense if he was ahead. The
Mm-hmm.
fact that he's behind, he has a lot of ground to make up.
Yes.
And it was a dumb, in my opinion, it was dumb to be so belligerent
Yeah.
because I think a lot of Americans, right or left, Christian or secular, kind of like decency. I think we
Yes.
forget that because of the chaos that we see, but a lot of people just like discussion and decency. And, I went on Facebook last night after the debate and I just wanted to see what people were saying. My evangelical friends, my, atheist friends, my progressive friends, my libertarian friends, no one thought it was a good debate.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. That is bad for Trump. Now, I want to turn this a little bit. I don't think there should be another debate. It's not because I think Biden doesn't want another debate. It's more because every time Trump does a debate or something in this stature of discussion, all it does is enable or empower a fringe group. Like, I think the only winners from this debate, if you really want to talk about winners, were the Proud Boys.
Yeah.
Like, and okay, multiple levels here, but first, like, I've just noticed the trend with Trump is like, I think he just messed up on framing how he was going to say it when he said, stand by when he should have said stand back. I don't really think.
He should have said, "I don't support white supremacy, and white
Of
supremacy
course,
is a bane in
well,
our
of course,
society." That's what he was asked, and then
right, of
instead he
course.
said, "Sure, I'll do whatever, stand by or whatever."
But what I'm saying is that I think again he's shown that he has no understanding or contextual morality for the moment we're in, because it doesn't really matter if he supports the Proud Boys or not. But because he didn't say what you just said is more alarming to me. And it's so easy, and it's the same thing. And we've seen it over and over again. And I don't know why people are reacting anymore because it's the same, man. He says something bad or out of context or horrible. Should be easy to say. It takes him a day to like pick up the pieces and respond. And also, he claims ignorance. He does this all the time. He doesn't know what QAnon is. He doesn't know what the Proud Boys are. It's because they support him and he doesn't want to acknowledge that they're bad and they're part of what he needs to win again.
Yeah. I think that was. I mean, even Brian Kilmeade, okay, of Fox News, was saying that Trump missed the biggest and easiest alley oop. And like, are you against white supremacy? That's like, are you against Hitler? Like, you just say yes. You say yes, I am. I'm against that. But he didn't. He was like, oh, sure. I mean, if you want me to, yeah, okay. Who exactly? Okay, Proud Boys, stand down and stand by. Like, that's. Even if he was like, oh, I framed it wrong and I fumbled out of my mouth, you should have just been like, dude, no, I hate white supremacy. It's bad for this country. And so,
And
and to have Fox News morning hosts even be like, what the heck was that? And that was really bad. That's really bad and probably his biggest blunder. Now, the Proud Boys aren't going to care. They probably took it as an endorsement. But for a lot of people, especially the more we learn about how Trump doesn't, like in 2016, they specifically wanted black people not to vote because they knew it would hurt him. Like, the more we learn about this, like, it's going to really hurt his chances with some minorities, as it should, because one, you have to pretty much denounce white supremacy. Like, it's kind of like a given in politics.
it's obvious that Trump keeps it vague because he wants his supporters, whoever they may be, to fill in the gray area.
Yes.
And unfortunately, I think that's what it is. He leaves it vague because he knows that he needs these groups. And I mean, the Proud Boys have already made T-shirts now saying, "Yes, we're standing by. Yes, we're ready." The FBI has put out reports saying that actually one of the biggest issues with law and order is Trump himself.
Yeah.
Because he is fueling this right-wing dangerous idea. And okay, before we're out of here, I just want to ask you about the election questions because my biggest fear, and I know everyone's talking about the Proud Boys thing, which is serious. To me, it all culminates in when Chris Wallace asked, "Will you both accept the election?" And
Right.
Biden unequivocally said yes. And Trump said, "Well, I actually want my voters to go out to local locations and watch the votes." And that's voter intimidation. It's illegal. It's horrible. It sounds Nazi Germany-esque. It's authoritarian as hell, and it's horrifying to me. And I think it shows us that mixing with him fueling the Proud Boys and with him already saying, "I'm not gonna accept this election if I don't win," I think we're gonna see some serious problems, man.
Absolutely. And there's a big difference between saying, hey, like if you have a nonpartisan government bureaucracy saying, hey, anyone out there that's a citizen wants to volunteer to be a poll watcher, come join this link. That's very different than the president, who is extremely political, saying my people need to be poll watchers. That is the electioneer. Because people are going to be like, what, you don't want people to volunteer to help our system and democracy? No, of course we need poll watchers. Of course we need like the people that volunteer to help the election go, like, election volunteers. That's not what Trump was saying. He was saying, I want my people to be at the polls to make sure that the ballots are right, whatever the hell that means. So, yeah, very scary. I think the next two debates are going to be just as bad. I really don't think Trump is going to make a big turn in strategy. Maybe he will for the first 5 minutes, right? His people will be like, yo, come on, tone it down. Don't interrupt as much. But as soon as he gets on that rant, it's just going to kick back up again, and we're going to see this 2 more times.
Yep, I totally agree with you. And I was telling my dad this tonight at dinner. I was like, I'm actually excited to see Harris and Pence speak because I actually don't like either one of them. I almost feel like at least there's going to be some substance there.
Yeah.
Because Pence, I disagree with him on almost everything, but I don't think he's like Trump in his means of like in his demeanor or delivery.
Completely different.
So, and I think I honestly think that our 2 shadow presidents, no matter who wins this election, it's one of those. Like those are the two. Those are the two who are going to have some substantial debates.
Maybe they'll be boring, and that'll be a great thing for once. All right, guys, that's going to wrap up today's episode of the Tonic Accord. A little more in-depth analysis of the debate. Stay tuned. Alex, I believe, is working on catching us up on Mexico and what's going on down there with their president. So definitely a lot of other stuff going on. We don't just cover U.S. politics. We do cover geopolitics and global politics. So stick with us. Find us on Twitch, live streaming on Twitch, recorded versions on YouTube, and audio is on Apple Podcasts, Podbean, and a litany of other third-party sites. So thanks for listening.
Take care, everybody.